I've visited two very different gardens to talk to the owners about how to connect your house and your garden, so it feels as if there's a seamless link between the inside and the outside of your home. I'm here at gardening writer and author Francine Raymond's house, and I've also visited the Victorian terraced home of Lisa Fuertados, who's a garden designer and has a plant shop, both called Fuchsia Green. In fact, both gardens are open for Whitstable Open Gardens for the NGS, which is the National Garden Scheme. And if you live in either England or Wales, or if you're ever planning to visit England or Wales, there are literally thousands of private gardens. And you can go onto the website and you can find a garden near where you are or near where you're staying. So I can really strongly recommend that. And I'll put links to the NGS, to Francine Raymond's website and to Fuchsia Green and any other resources we mention in the description below. And if you're new here, the Middle-Sized Garden uploads weekly with tips, ideas and inspiration for your garden. So if you'd like to see the videos when you open up YouTube, tap subscribe. Of course, you may have big glass doors or big glass windows that open out into your garden, or you may have a more traditional house, in which case the house is more separated from the garden. But in either way, these principles do work. So Francine, where do you start when you start to think about connecting your house and your garden?
I'm very interested in colour, so I always make sure that the colours that I've used inside the house are reflected in the hard landscaping and the garden furniture. And obviously plants and things change, but I do like to see a reflection of those colours in the garden. Originally, when I moved here, there was a tiny little door coming out to a piece of concrete. So we put in some, what they used to call French windows in the style of the house, and my son built decking over the concrete to the actual garden.
And actually I see that you've just put a lovely rug down, which I think is also a very good sort of inside-outside thing. It makes it almost feel as that decking is almost like a garden room.
Yes, exactly. I only have it out there in the summer, but although it's an all-weather one, I don't made out of some kind of plastic, I imagine. And it gives you a feeling of comfort. I do my Pilates out there and my grandchildren play on it. It makes you want to sit down and be there instead of just walk straight out, I think.
And what would you say were the colours inside and around the house that you used, that you picked up on when you were first thinking about hard landscaping of the garden?
Well, I kind of remembered that we're by the sea. So I've used a sandy ochre yellow and a blue. I've got a yellow brick house, so that reflected quite well with the house, and a slate roof. So the woodwork is painted in a strange colour that seems to change with the light, but it's a sort of slaty grey with blue.
And do you bring that blue into the garden in terms of plants, or is it really just, and the yellow, or is it really just the tables, the chairs, the pavers and everything like that?
Yes, I think it probably is, because I'm afraid my love of colours varies from season to season. I get sort of obsessed with a particular colour, and that may well change the following. At the moment it's orange, dark red and lime green. So
Lisa, when a client comes to you with their house and their garden, where do you start with making sure that the boundaries between the house and the garden blur beautifully and that the house just seems to run into the garden beautifully?
Well, every garden design starts with the people that own the house, the property, and also the view out, and trying to connect the style of the people with the garden. So often prospective clients ask me, well, what would you do with my garden? And I always say, it's not about me, it's all about you. So that's always the starting point. How they want to use the garden, their property and the aspect and the context, say if we're in the country or in the coast or in the town, that will kind of inform a design, and also the style of the interior. So of course if somebody has a more contemporary style, then we bring a more contemporary style out. So that's always the starting point.
The first thing I noticed when I walked in was how well the kitchen connected to the garden. I had this sense of a jungle, and near the patio doors in the kitchen, and then outside to a low maintenance garden with lots of places to sit. So if you talk about how you designed this garden.
Yeah, so my house is quite zoned, so when you come into the kitchen, you've got the kitchen area, and then you've got this seating area here that you and then you step out into the garden. So I wanted to create another seating area outside that completely connects. Even the way we've got the furniture arranged outside, it connects, it actually relates to the furniture that's inside. And then I've zoned it into 3 areas. The deck up here, which has got, as you said, very kind of jungly feel to it, which connects with all the houseplants that I have in here. And then we go into this next level, which is slightly more formal, with some lots of evergreen structure. Another seating area, and then I have another area which is just getting a little bit wilder, lots of grasses, perennials, which becomes very exuberant late summer. And then that all just leads on to my studio. So it's, yeah, all about zoning and just bringing a nice little journey down into the garden. We had slight level changes here, so I've used those level changes to actually zone the garden and to create a series of rooms in the garden.
And am I right in thinking that you've run, for instance, the colour of the kitchen floor very close to the colour of the decking?
Absolutely.
So that all those things just flow on carefully?
Absolutely. That was really important.
Lisa has divided her garden into zones, but she has a very different kind of house and garden to you, because hers is a typical terraced Victorian house with a long, thin garden, and your house sits much more centrally in the plot. It's a much wider garden. So do you actually divide into zones, or how do you divide up the space so as to feel that the house and the garden are linked?
I've divided mine into 3 zones. You walk from one into another, mainly because at the bottom of my garden I've got a huge oak tree, so by necessity that has to be a woodland garden. In the middle I keep chickens, and so they are in an orchard with a meadow. But the bit nearer the house, it's a bit more kind of ornamental and designery, I suppose, whereas the others are a bit more natural. And I'm very keen on I always have been wildlife gardening. So the other 2 are more kind of natural, and they have very different atmospheres. That's the other thing. I'm very interested in different atmospheres in gardens.
And in terms of plants that are going to be, say, near, obviously if you've got glass doors, often even on quite a windy day, we might have them wide open because it's so lovely to have the fresh air. Would you have to be careful with the plants you choose that are near a patio door in order that they won't get problems with drafts?
Yeah, it's just the same principles as the garden, garden plants. Right plant, right place. So if you've got a sunny window, you need plants that can tolerate that. It depends on the aspect of your house, whether it's north facing, south east, so all that has to be taken into account.
Quite a lot of houseplants do well in the garden in summer, and it's good for them to be out and get the rain, and you find you lose a few of the pests and things.
So when you're shopping for something like garden furniture, I think you go to antique markets and junk shops and everything like that, and then you pull it all together by paint. Is that right?
Painting, yes. And people say, oh gosh, you're very clever to always use the same colour. It's not clever at all. You've always got a tin of the same colour paint, so why not use it? And it just does join everything together. And also I might have used the colour on furniture outside, but perhaps I've used that colour on tiles inside.
Yeah, take colour through. Quite often I'll pick up, if somebody does have a specific colour, like, orange or teal or something like that, try and connect that with the planting. So really bring those colours out, and it might just be, in the planting scheme that we kind of use that colour palette outside. I designed a garden. I'd picked up on a tapestry on the wall. The client was actually Indian, so it was like a Indian style tapestry with sort of lovely paisley kind of shapes in it. And I brought that out into the garden and created hortense steel raised beds in those shapes outside. So it really connected with her and again, the interior. One of the worst things is going to see a client when they're doing a renovation and they haven't done their interior. I have nothing to go on. So I'm usually asking, what's your floor finish going to be? And they're thinking, we haven't even decided that yet, but I have to, I try and explain that it's really important because we want that flow from inside to out. That's really where the inspiration comes from. The other really important thing, as most people do, have lots of glass at the back of their house now, looking out into the garden, is to really make sure that the garden looks good all year round. So we're talking kind of winter interest as well as spring and summer. lots of evergreens, lots of structure and just form in the garden. And then of course bringing in kind of lighting schemes and things like that, which can really bring the garden to life in the evening when you're looking out onto that garden.
Yes, because obviously in the winter you're not spending as much time outside. So I've got a table that I look out on, and I keep plants on it, and I try and sort of have things of interest, because it's pointless having beautiful things going on at the bottom of the garden that no one can see. You want to bring it within your eye line.
So if you're interested in garden design, there's a Best Garden Designs playlist at the end of this video. And do let me know how you connect your house and garden. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.